Homework 12, section 6.2, combinations in the binomial distribution, video number 6. Before we get to these formulas for mean, variance, and standard deviation of a binomial distribution, I thought it would be a good idea to actually show you a binomial distribution. We talked about a binomial experiment, we talked about the binomial probability formula, but recall that a distribution is a table that lists every possible value of a random variable and the probability of that value occurring. Using the same context as before, if we're guessing the answer to a multiple choice question and there are 10 questions and little x is the number of questions that we get correct, then we can get anywhere from 0 to 10 questions correct. I've went ahead and calculated the probabilities of getting no questions correct, 1 question, 2 questions, all the way down to 10. Just to let you know, I used Microsoft Excel to do the dirty work for me. The last 4 are the ones that we added up for passing. But if you'll notice, none of these probabilities are really big. The largest one is about 28%, and that's the probability of getting 2 correctly. Now, when we talked about a discrete probability distribution in 6.1, there was a formula for calculating the mean and the standard deviation. The mean formula, don't write this down, was the sum of each value times its probability, and the standard deviation formula actually came in a couple of flavors. One of them was the sum of the squares of each value minus the mean times the probability, or it was the sum of each value squared times its probability minus the square of the mean. And we could do both of these for this, but for a binomial distribution, a distribution for a binomial experiment, these formulas collapse down to something a lot simpler. So without further ado, actually before I do that, let me just ask you a question. If you have a 25% chance of guessing a question correctly, then on average out of 10 questions, how many do you expect to get correct? Hint, it's a decimal. So if this person guessed, and all these people guessed, and I averaged the number of answers they got correct, what do you think it would be? The answer, 2.5. How did I get that so quickly? Because for a binomial distribution, the formula for the mean of a binomial distribution is easy. The formula is the mean of the distribution, and remember, we're just using this capital X subscripted on the mu to represent the random variable that's generating the distribution, is n times p. 10 questions, 25% chance of getting a question right. 25% times 10 is 2.5. So for this one, 10 questions times 25% chance of getting a question right is 2.5. So on average, we can expect to get 25% of the questions correct. That kind of makes sense. Let me put a red box around this formula. Now, what's the formula for standard deviation? And my apologies, the formulas I wrote up here for standard deviation were not the formulas for standard deviation. They were the formulas for variance. Square root that to get the formula for standard deviation. So let's talk about variance of a binomial distribution. We can apply the formulas that I just wrote up here for variance, which I incorrectly called standard deviation. We can apply it to this distribution, but for a binomial distribution, the variance is a lot simpler. The variance, whose symbol is sigma squared, still subscripting with an x to denote the random variable that's generating the distribution. The formula for variance starts out the same as the formula for the mean. It's n times p, but then you multiply it times 1 minus p. So it's the number of trials times the probability of a success times the probability of a failure. So in this example, the variance would be 10 times 0.25, not sure what's going on there, times 0.75. So what would that be? In my younger days, I would do this in my head, but I don't feel like it. 1.875. We put a box around the variance formula. And so to find the standard deviation, you just have to square root the variance. The standard deviation is the square root of the variance. So sigma x equals the square root of sigma squared x. So in this example, the standard deviation is just the square root of 1.875. And so if we square root that number to 4 decimal places, we get 1.3693. And that is the binomial distribution. Its mean, its variance, and square root the variance to get the standard deviation. Really straightforward formulas, just as long as you understand what each letter means. This n is the number of trials, the number of times you repeat an experiment. This p is the probability of a success, whatever is deemed a success. I think that's pretty much it. Yep. It's a relatively short section. I mean, the formula is kind of janky. Can't wait to see YouTube try to closed caption that. But once you understand what a binomial experiment is, a certain number of trials, the trials are independent. There are 2 outcomes for each trial, one called a success, one called a probability, one called a failure. And within each trial, the probabilities remain the same. Then the probability of the number of successes is just the formula that we saw earlier. The probability of getting so many successes is NCX times p to the x times 1 minus p to the n minus x. So it's just a matter of being cautious with what your numbers are, where you're putting them, using your calculator, and the formulas for mean, variance, and standard deviation, pretty straightforward also. This is the last section that's going to be covered on your second test. I will be posting details about your test early next week. Here's what I can tell you now. Number 1, the test will cover homework sections 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, and 7. I believe homework 7 was the last part of chapter 3 that didn't make it onto test 1. Homeworks 8, 9, and 10 were from chapter 5. Homeworks 11 and 12 were these 2 sections from chapter 6. And this is the last section we're going to do in chapter 6. We're going to skip section 6.3 for the sake of time. I can say with 100% confidence that we will not build on that section in the future. Your test will be on Canvas. I will go ahead and say that you may use your notes for your test and you may use the textbook for the test if you have a hard copy of the textbook. If you don't have a hard copy of the textbook and only access the textbook through the online homework, then I'm going to ask you not to do that, because although I'm going to let you use any notes that you want, I am going to ask you to not get assistance from other people or any website, and that includes the online homework website. So between now and next week, you want to start going through the homework sections, going all the way back to homework 7, and writing as many notes as you want to use. One other thing about the test is, even though it's going to be on Canvas and you will be submitting your answers online, I am going to ask you to write your work on notebook paper and send me pictures of that work. You will only receive credit for the problems if you send me a picture of your work. No work equals no credit on that problem. The test will be open sometime next week, and there will be a 1-week time span in which you will have to complete it. So, but those are all the details I can give you right now. If you have any questions, please feel free to message me through Canvas. Please text me. I've posted my cell phone number and multiple announcements on Canvas. Please let me know if there's anything I can do to help you. Now, on a more serious note, because of the global pandemic with COVID-19, I completely understand that you may have had to reprioritize the things in your life, and this class may not be at the top of that priority list. I don't blame you. Please let me know if there's anything I can do to help you. If you need more time to finish the material beyond the end of the course, we can work something out. But I'm trying to bring a sense of normalcy to your life. with everything that's going on. And so I'm hoping that these videos are giving you a sense of, man, I remember back in the day when I could go to school and we could sit with each other and I can ask questions. And I fully believe that we will get back to that point at some time in the future. It's just not where we are right now. So buckle down, do what you need to do regardless of school. And if and when you have the time, please get on the homework, please ask questions. Your next test will begin next week and there will be a 1-week window. Good luck and please stay safe.